Greetings folks, welcome back to the Craft Hammer. I'm your host Stefan, and it's been a while since I've been doing any videos, and it's also been a while since I've actually been doing the hobby. I had to take a few months of a break, and now I'm finally able to get back into it, to build, to paint, and more importantly, the reason why I'm doing this video is that I intend to go to my first tournament. It's not going to be a major tournament, it's not going to be big. It's a local, friendly, local game store, 1,000 points. So not the competitive, they do have tournaments for competitive, but since I haven't actually played in a tournament ever before, I thought I might as well start somewhere, get back into the groove, start learning a few more rules, and what better way than to get my Custodes, which out of everything that I'm collecting, I have Space Marines that I can do a 2,000 point army, with a big caveat. There is quite a number of Firstborn Marines and only a small amount of Primaris, so I can't actually have either only Firstborn or only Primaris to reach 2,000 points. And it would be a bit of a, I guess most people wouldn't really be too happy if I had to proxy some of the Firstborn for some Primaris. So I kind of just wanted to make sure that if I'm going to a tournament, there's not going to be any issues. And the Custodes armies itself that I have, pretty much 2,000 points. Now technically there's a tiny bit over 2,000 points, and as you might be able to see, the Telemon Dreadnought isn't fully painted, so I will be making sure to get this finished. And of course we have a bit too many HQ characters, but we'll get into those details. I'll re-jig the angles and make sure to kind of zoom in, because I also do want to do this as a showcase. So this video will be split, I guess, into 3, 4, maybe 5 sections. Obviously we have the intro now. We'll switch the positioning around to make sure that I can give you some close-ups of everything that I have here, and I'll explain what I plan to do. And I actually have, so I have the tournament coming up, but I also have a friendly game with a friend, and I'm going to be doing 2,000 points. So I'll give you both of those lists, and then I will be waiting until after the tournament has passed, gather my thoughts, and then towards the end of the video, hopefully I'll come back and I'll tell you how it went, how my experience was, what I learned, what happened. Now, because I have a bit more free time, I am hoping that I will be able to bring you more videos. I will be doing a Space Marine video as well. That's going to be a lot more models than here, and I'll try and go through that collection. And then I also have some Imperial Agents that I've been collecting for over a year now, and with the release of this new codex, which I managed to pick up, I'm going to do a showcase of what I have. Quite a lot of stuff will be proxied just because it's some old metal models and they don't really fit exactly into the new stuff. So there'll probably be a lot of inquisitorial henchmen popping about, or I believe they're called inquisitorial agents. I do have a Chaos Knight army. It's not painted though. I'll probably still do a showcase of that. It's just not really ready for people to see. Well, personally I just like to have a lot more painted stuff when I'm bringing it to a game or trying to show it off. But the intention and plan is that going forward, we will be trying to attend the 1,000 point tournaments that are happening every month. I will hopefully learn quite a bit so that I can jump up into the competitive 2,000 points tournaments that they also hold every month. So let's get into the zoom in. We'll explain what I got, and then once I finish the tournament and the games later in September, I'll come back and we'll go through the experience. This of course will be the Blade Champion. He'll be my Warlord, so I'll just put him there. Now what I want to do is go through my 1,000 point list as part of the showcase, and then I will bring it up to the 2000 point list, and after which the last HQ or 2 remnants that will be from my collection, because I don't really have that many more points than 2000 when it comes to Custodes. I do have some Sister of Silence on sprues and some Dun Eagle jet bikes, but they're not built, so there's not really much point in trying to showcase those. So my 1000 points starts off with the Blade Champion, after which we will have some Sagittarium and Custodes. Now these guys are pretty much just Custodian guards with bolters from the Templar Crusader squad and a nice little cape here. I got these and custom made them like this just because the actual price for the Sagittarium seemed a bit unnecessary to pay 25, I believe it was 25 euro for the actual weapons that are just resin add-ons. And since I already had these bolters from the Crusader squad, it just made sense. Helmets, I'm all good with the classic Custodes helmet, so that works fine with me. And then our second will be the good old normal Custodian Guardian squad. 5 of those with spears. Nothing fancy there. I suspect that my Warlord will most likely join that squad and go up the board. So the intent here, before we continue on, is that the Sagittarium, they sit on some sort of objective at the back or towards my side of the board. Hopefully they'll be able to defend it. They do seem to have some nice shooting, but because they're also at the back, that's why I wanted to get them. Hopefully they can, support fire in the middle of the board with their long range bolters instead of being a throwaway unit. And yes, I know that some people like to use the Sisters of Silence, I believe the bolter ones, and leave them on back objectives. It's just that at this very moment I'm not really collecting the Sisters of Silence apart from the squad that I have, which was actually intended to be built with swords and also be part of my Imperial Agents force. Now my next 2 units will in fact be 2 squads of 2 Alaris Custodians with their spears. The intent here is that both of these will be in deep strike, and hopefully I won't be shot off the board turn 1, and in turn 2 I'll be able to put these somewhere where it hurts for the opponent, go into potentially, if I get the I believe there's a mission where you have to have a squad in each sector of the board, so if I manage to get these 2 to drop on the 2 opposite sectors, hopefully that will get me some sort of victory points of some kind. And last but not least, it only makes sense that I get a nice dread. I believe this is the Achilles dread with the spear. He's looking pretty mighty, mostly just because he's cool. It's not that I expect him to be some sort of magnificent one-shot, one-man army. I do expect and I hope that he will be taking most of the fire, and that the opponent will kind of be looking at him and saying, oh, I need to handle him first, while kind of ignoring some of the other Custodes that I have. That's kind of his intent. And of course, if I do manage to charge with him, he can pretty much tear up most things that he gets in combat with. Now I pushed things a bit back, and let's bring in the rest of the 2000 points that I will be fielding against my friend for a friendly match. So things will only slightly be changing, not too drastically. Now first and foremost, let's just add some extra 5 Custodian guards. This will be 2 squads, so it won't be 1 squad of 10. And then importantly, we're actually going to be moving these Terminators over here, and as part of that Terminator squad, we're just going to be adding a 5th member, and and that will become one squad. And then on top of that, this blade champion here, I had an idea of giving him some custodian guard, but this time we have the shield variant. So they're gonna come in with the blade champion, protect him as much as possible so that he can get into the fray and do the damage. And I was initially thinking of having a normal custodian captain, but I thought, you know, I might as well, since I painted him fairly recent. Well, it was probably one of the last things that I painted before my big break. Now I am of course talking about Trajan Valoris. I think he turned out pretty nicely. For those of you who are wondering, the shield host that I'm doing, it's supposed to be, I believe they're called the Shadow Keepers, the ones that protect the Vaults of Terra. I wasn't quite happy with their actual paint scheme that is in the book, where it's just black with red shoulder pads. It didn't really inspire me that much, so I did slightly change the paint for it to be, I believe the contrast paint is called Pterodon Turquoise. Of course I gave them some gold trimmings, with the eagles being, I believe the eagles are Administratum Grey, I'd have to double check, and of course orange swords, capes, tassels on top of their helmets, just to connect them all in. And then, as I mentioned before, he is not fully painted. He is probably one of the last things that I need to paint. We of course have the Telamon Heavy Dreadnought. He has a fist. This is not the weapon that I will be technically using. I will be proxying this as the other version. I believe the other version is for vehicles. But when I bought this, which I believe this one I actually got on the trip to Warhammer World, I did make a video for that. So if you want, go back to, I believe it's over a year now for that video. And that's when I got this for my birthday. So I just picked up what I found on the shelf, and I don't believe they actually had the other cannon in the store at that time, so this is how I bought it. If you're wondering about the base, I believe this is some terrain from Age of Sigmar, from the Age of Sigmar magazine when it came out, and then I just put some extra skulls. Kind of a centerpiece for the army, hopefully taking some heavy fire and returning heavy fire. And then last but not least, since I am an avid collector for the Imperial Agents before the Codex came out, and there doesn't actually seem to be that many new models that came out with the Codex. In fact, I believe there's actually none. But anyway, before that, we are going to be putting an Eversor Assassin into this list. He turned out pretty nice, blue with some red armor. He is just going to be there to create havoc, and if he gets ignored, hopefully take down some interesting units. If he doesn't, he will be a nice distraction for some of my other units to get into better positions. So this will be my 2,000 points. I know people really like to have the Custodian Wardens. Maybe one day I will get my own Custodian Wardens, but for now I'm happy with the force that I managed to collect. And we have 3 more models left to kind of show off pretty much the entire collection, apart from those things that are not built. Last but not least is of course the 6th Terminator. It just so happens that I removed him so that I could in fact put the Eversor Assassin in my 2K list. We also have Valerian. As I mentioned, his counterpart is with the Imperial Agents. That's why she's not being showcased here, so she will be part of the video for them. and I did change his head with a helmet from the Dawn Eagle jet bikes just because I thought it looked really cool for him, and I kind of prefer that most of my units have helmets on. The only ones that won't have helmets are kind of the more rare things or HQs that are more important, and I know he's technically a HQ, but I just decided that he'd look much cooler as a helmet on. And then last but not least, one of my favorite models, we in fact have, I believe his name is Axion Hail. Hopefully I said that right. To be fair, it's a bit of a unnecessarily complicated name. I would have preferred if he was called something much easier. He was one of the models that, similar to the Dread, I got at Warhammer World for my birthday, so I managed to paint him up before I took my break. I think he turned out pretty nicely, and I'm going to use him as a decent shield captain stand-in for when I just play a shield captain as part of my list. So that is the entire force that I have. As I mentioned, there's two things that are unbuilt and unpainted. They're not part of this. When I do manage to paint up the Sisters of Silence, they will be part of the Imperial Agents. I would like to get another Dreadnought and potentially a tank, but for now let's go to the games and the tournaments and we'll give my thoughts afterwards. Hello folks, welcome back. It's been a hot minute. I know for you it's just a transition, but the first part of the video was filmed quite a few days ago, and if you remember, the Telemon Dread was not painted. So I'll just give you the quickest zoom in. What I'll be doing is I'll probably try and retake a lot of photos and post it up on Instagram for my army now that I have a slightly better camera. So somewhere, I believe it's probably in the bio somewhere, you could find the Instagram link, or just look up Crafthammer 1, I think should pop up. Pretty easy enough. It's Valerian wherever he is. That's my profile picture. So as I said, it's been a few days, and filming now on today I had my 2000 points friendly game with a good friend of mine. Luckily that I did, because from now 7 days, and you'll get the update afterwards, but in 7 days it's actually my first well, I don't know if it counts as an official tournament because it's for my local game store, but it's my first official tournament, so good that I had the game today. The tournament will only be 1000 points. It was important to get this experience today, as I learned quite a bit how some of these units play. Some disappointed, surprisingly, while some did really well, again surprisingly. First, the faction that I played against was Dark Angels. As I was chatting with my friend afterwards, and we were thinking probably not the best matchup, since he had a lot more like heavy elite units such as the Deathwing Knights, 2 Deathwing Terminators, a 6-man squad of those companions, whatever they're called. I don't know. I don't actually know what they're called, but he was with Azrael, and then they were also buffed up by the Lion being nearby with his auras. He also had some units that were not performing and kind of let him down. Apart from the units that did not do well for him, he did have quite a lot of heavy hitting elite squads, which I wasn't expecting obviously to wipe them out in one turn, but I was definitely expecting certain things to do much better and at least have a significant impact that would shift things around much quicker. But there was a lot of grinding. What I'll do is I'll give you the things that were good that actually surprised me quite a bit, and I'll be looking to adapt it to my 1000 point list, which I kind of have something in mind, so we'll see if this changes before next week, but I did change from what you saw in the previous one, or in the previous side of the video. So let me give you the things that were good, and then let me give you the things that were medium, and then the things that were really surprisingly bad and yeah, not happy about. But you know, well, it's not that I'm not happy about it, it's just that what I thought I could do did not work out. Now let's do the good. Trajan Valoris, he did decent. He wasn't like anything spectacular when it came to shooting. He did manage to eventually get into combat with the Lion, and he performed well, and I wasn't like worried if he was getting targeted or that he would kind of collapse and, you know, the foundation of the army would fall. So he was actually surviving, and it's not like they managed to destroy things, as I said, like in, you know, one full squad in one volley. But the Sagittarium, they did what I wanted. They were able to target specific things, put in enough shots to take them, you know, ping a model or two. Obviously the sustained, or not the sustained, but the suppress rule that I had, it helped out, and they were able to sit pretty much at the, not the very back, but like in my deployment zone on the edge on a building, and they were able to target pretty much the entire board. So definitely enjoyed those. I am going to try and still bring them and try them out when it comes to putting them on a back objective and shooting. And then what really surprised me, and this was the really kind of good, was the bog standard Custodian Guardians with the spears. The fact that they have the, I believe it was a 24 or 36 range, whatever it is, I never had to worry that I wasn't doing anything with them. Every turn they were close enough to something that they were able to get their shots off, and then when I needed, or when the time was right, I had the shoot again thing that they have, the little rule that they have. Every time they were able to shoot, and again, it's not a shooting army, but it still counts, it still matters. You still need those bullets to go out and at least maybe take down one model, ping off a few wounds of something. One of them was by themselves, so one was with Trajan, and they were going down to the kind of the center important objective, but one of them I had put on my right flank that I wanted to sit on an objective, and they managed to do really well since two Deathwing Terminator squads came down on that side. Don't get me wrong, they didn't wipe out the squad, or either squad, but in conjunction with the Telemon Dread, they were pretty much able to hold that line for a very long time. Surprisingly enough, I had one guy left at the last round that we played, after which he had survived. First of all, one Deathwing Terminator squad coming in, and then the second one with Belial, which had 2 rounds of combat in. So they somehow managed, even though they don't have like apart from their normal armor save and their invulnerable save, they don't have some sort of, you know, trick that keeps them alive much longer beyond that, you know, halving damage, whatever else you can find. So they actually managed to hold down, kill Belial and his squad, and in the end he was still there. So very surprising, definitely gonna keep including them. And then the next part that is positive, which was unexpected, slightly, you know, I was hoping for a bit more, but at the same time it still performed decently enough, was the Telemon Dread. He did manage to wound the Ballistus Dread on the opposite side of the board. He also wounded the Speeder, and he also had I think 2 rounds of combat with the Deathwing Terminator squad that was by itself, not with Belial. So he managed to hold out with a lot of damage that was focused on him, more surprising than I expected. I guess his high toughness can really work in his favor when it comes to the enemy having to roll some sort of wound roll, and of course his taking the damage away. I think he has one the one where it's like you take 1 damage from an attack, and then of course his invulnerable saves, or is it just armor saves? Whatever the profile is, he did extremely well. And then let's go into what was like neutral but unexpected, because I was hoping for it to do more, but at the same time it did actually help, which was the Eversor Assassin. I just really added him as a gimmick. I think it's kind of funny to have an assassin that's thematic, that they go crazy and off they go on a rampage. But surprisingly enough, after I moved him up and in my second turn, I did the overkill. So what I did was moved him, or not, overkill, which gives the 6-inch movement. Then I moved him normally, and then I did his advance. I was pretty much like an inch away from the Dark Angels companion squad, whatever the thing is called. Yeah, I bogged down that squad for roughly like a turn and a half in a sense. It was more than enough for Trajan and his squad to capture the center objective. My opponent had to come and try and get it off me, so I was already able to kind of lock it down and get my points while he was stuck with the Eversword. So if he was, obviously went into a guardsman squad of 10 Cadian shock troops, I'm sure he'd, rip and tear, but he did go up against pretty high armor saves, vulnerable saves, and even a feel no pain aura. So he was more of a roadblock than an actual game-changing thing, but it was a really useful roadblock. Now, the things that were super disappointing. Let's start off with the Achilles Dreadnought. I was really hoping that he would do a lot more, but the fact that his spear shooting is 12 inches, obviously it's a powerful weapon, sure, but a one attack at 12 inches is really difficult. I don't even know if I think I might have shot it once, and that was for Overwatch, because otherwise there was no way to get a shot. And then of course he just didn't survive. He got charged by the Deathwing Knights and absolutely destroyed. It made me rethink about bringing him to the 1000 point game, because I thought it would be a nice kind of centerpiece model to bring and it would be kind of cool, but in reality it's a lot of points for no real consistent output, unless I'm super lucky and I manage to not really get any damage in the first turn, and if I'm lucky enough that I get to charge him into an enemy unit on the second turn, then of course with his lance ability, and since he'll be the one who's attacking first, I'm sure he'll be able to tear into any squad. And like, if you really do the math, if you manage to charge him first into the lion and the lion doesn't destroy him because the lion has the fights first, yeah, he could with optimal rolls one shot the lion, but that's a lot of ifs and hopings that the dice are in your favor. I do not think I will bring him to the 1000 point game. He was not consistent. Terminators, again, a 5-man squad came down, but in reality, apart from when I was on the Ballistus Dread, I stole his objective, which still gave me a decent point. So it's not like they didn't not do something useful. They did give one unit down. They also did give me an objective, but they didn't feel like it was impactful, strangely enough, even though they helped in a sense. So again, it's not something, I don't know if I'm going to be using them. And then the biggest disappointment was the custodian guards with the shields and swords and the blade champion. The intent was that the custodian guards with the shields would take the most damage. They did take damage when we were running up the board, but in reality what was important was when they got into combat. Now, they did get into combat with the Deathwing Knights after they destroyed the Dread, they pretty much did nothing really. I mean, apart from one Deathwing Knight dying, they were inconsistent because, as I was saying earlier, the guys with the spears, they were shooting and being helpful. I only got one round of shooting with the sword and shields, and that's because eventually we got close to something. When the Blade Champion actually got into combat, it really didn't do much. I'm not sure why people are calling him the Blade Wizard, or yeah, something on the lines like a Blade Wizard, because he really did not perform that well. Now, as we were discussing, it might not have been the best matchup against Deathwing Knights, but I was hoping that since I was using, I believe is it the Behemoth, the one that's specifically for precision to take out the Chaplain, that he would be able to do something. 30 wounds went in. He definitely was not close to dying, that's for sure. And then when he got hit back, pretty much died instantly. So that's what happened. I will not be taking those, and instead what I have thought is I will take 2 squads of Custodian Guards, the Sagittarium, and then I will be taking Trajan Valorous, and then I will in fact be taking, hopefully you can see that, Shield Captain on Dawn Eagle Jetbike. It's not painted yet. Well, it's primed and it's got 1 coat of paint. So hopefully my mind doesn't change over the week, but I will be painting him up. That will be my list, my 1,000 points on this side. 2 guards, 2 normal Custodian Guard squads, Sagittarium, Trajan, and the Captain on bike. Hopefully that will do something. So let me go, well, in a week's time, let me go into the tournament, and then I'll see how I do, and hopefully I don't get completely destroyed. I'd like to at least win 1 match. It's not too mean to my opponent, but also hopefully it is still decent enough that I'll actually be able to, as I said, hopefully win 1. And yeah, so I'll see you back in a quick jiff. And we are back, folks. Today I literally just finished a tournament, drove on home, and I wanted to give my quick thoughts. What I really want to do is I'll show you the Captain on the jet bike, and then I think I'm going to cut the video because it does feel like it's actually getting quite a lot, and I don't really want to bore people by having a video that's like over an hour long. I would like it to be a bit shorter, so what I'll do is a part 2 where I'll actually go into the details. It went much better than expected. I didn't lose every match. I didn't get wiped off the board round 1 in any of them. So we'll get into that in the second video. But first of all, I'll just give you a quick look of the bike captain, which I did manage to get done during the week. Let me just get some better light over here. He's looking pretty good. Finished him the day before the tournament, no, 2 days before the tournament, and then gave him a quick varnish. So wanted to make sure that he was fully painted for the games. The plan going forward, I will try and do some army showcases of what I have ready, then some hobby updates of things that I'm painting and currently building, and of course once per month I will try to do the 1,000 points tournament and give a quick update on those. And if we manage to get more things painted, so I would like to probably, well, I can definitely bring the Custodes to a 2,000 point tournament, so I might try that out. And I would like to get a full Primaris army for my Space Marines, get that up to 2,000, because I don't actually have full Primaris 2,000. I could of course do a 2,000 point with mix it in with Firstborn, but we'll figure that later. So let me know your thoughts down below, what you thought about this army showcase. What do you think about the paint scheme? I'm quite happy with it. and I think if I do get a few more additions to the Custodes, such as maybe a tank from Forge World, I would be interested in getting I believe it's the Galatis Dreadnought, the one with the shield and the sword. I would like to add that. That will roughly be the army finished. Maybe I'll get some Custodian Wardens. Maybe. I'm not really sold on them. I know rules-wise they seem to be great. They're not that visually different from the normal Custodian guards, so I'm not fully sold on that. Maybe I'll get the jump pack units. I think they're the Venetari. I'll think about it. There's no hard line there. So let me know down below what you thought about the showcase. If you liked it, give us a like. Throw down your comments down below what you think happened. I had played 3 games, and if you thought maybe I won 1, 2, or 3, I definitely didn't win 3, but you can flame me down below. And yeah, stay tuned, subscribe. I will get recording the second video with the actual tournament update. And yeah, until next time, take care folks.